Caught Stealing is a new crime comedy thriller starring Austin Butler, directed by Darren Aronovsky. Austin Butler plays this former baseball player who's on the fast track to join the MLB, and then something happened, so that dream fell through. Now he bartends, he lives in New York City in a rundown apartment. At one point, his neighbor, Matt Smith, asks him to watch his cat for a few days while he goes out of town. At which point, though, Austin Butler starts receiving some strange visits from some very sketchy, dangerous criminals who apparently have done some work with Matt Smith that they want answers to. They now believe Austin Butler's in cahoots with him, and now they're prepared to do whatever they need to get what they want. And Austin Butler is just trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. If you're a movie lover, I feel like you feel one of two ways about Darren Aronovsky and his movies. You either think he's one of the best directors in the game and you highly anticipate whatever movie he's releasing next. Like to you, he's in that class with Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, James Cameron. He's in that group. Or you're more like me and you respect who he is as a filmmaker, and you can certainly see why his movies are appreciated and revered in such a way, but his movies have never fully grabbed you and sucked you in the way others describe them. That's ultimately how I would describe my relationship, if you want to call it that, with Darren Aronofsky's movies. I think they're impressive. I think they're very well made and clearly made with a lot of passion. But they've always been very bleak, dark, kind of hopeless, and they are very psychological movies, but they've never left that effect on me to the point where I felt the need to really see them again. The only one of his movies that I own on Blu-ray is Requiem for a Dream, and frankly, that's only so I can show that movie to others who haven't seen it, so I can crack their souls the same way that movie cracked mine the first time I saw it. However, I will say this. One thing that I think is great about Darren Aronofsky and his style is one thing that's pretty much always a guarantee with his movies is he will pull incredible, all-time great, Oscar-worthy, namely Oscar-winning performances from his lead actors. Ellen Burstyn, Natalie Portman, Mickey Rourke, Brendan Fraser. All of them either were nominated or won an Oscar, and frankly, the ones that were nominated, or only nominated rather, probably should have won. So whenever you go into a Darren Aronofsky movie, you know you're typically going in for a psychological ride of a lifetime that's either gonna wreck you or have you feeling some type of way, and just appreciating and in awe of the performance that is given by the main character, or the lead actor. So I'll get into that right out the gate. Austin Butler, undeniably, is great in this movie. Now, is he Oscar worthy in this movie? I don't know if I would go that far necessarily. I mean, granted, I'm not the Academy. In fact, I've stopped trying to understand the Academy at this point, so I don't know how they'll feel. Maybe they'll think yes, maybe they'll think no. But regardless, Austin Butler is really good in this movie. You could argue it's the best he's ever been in a movie, and I wouldn't disagree with you, because what I like seeing with his character, and namely with him, is he's finally getting a chance to really show that he can carry a movie like this. I mean, he's clearly a broken, depressed guy who lost his dream, is kind of just trying to find his way back in the world. But it's not like he's a very quick on his feet kind of guy either. He's relatable in that sense. When all these thugs and criminals and gangsters come knocking on his door and start beating his ass and torturing him and causing him unspeakable pain, he's just sitting there like, I gotta find a way out of this, I don't know what to do. I need to think of something quickly before people I love get hurt. And that's what's great about him. He plays a very relatable guy caught up in a situation that I think most people would handle if they found themselves in that situation. Like, yeah, in this movie, he didn't play a famous rock star or an absolute psychopath. He just played a normal dude, and he was great at it. I thought the entire cast in general did a really good job. Regina King was great in this movie. Zoe Kravitz was really good in this movie. Matt Smith, I mean, you kind of grow to hate his character because he puts everyone else through a load of bullshit, but he was good in the role. He's kind of become typecast as that sleazebag, behind the scenes, like villainous sort of character of sorts, but he plays it very well. It's very easy to hate the characters he plays, and that's a testament to him and his performances. Also, I'll say this much, the movie very wisely let his cat play a very big role in the movie itself, because when shit hits the fan and things are going wrong and people start to get in danger, you become very concerned for this cat. Like, God forbid anything happens to the cat and you feel a level of anger and fear and sadness to yourself. It's like, you know, it's a little bit of a cheat, but the movie went with it, and it works. I will say this much, this is probably a more loaded cast than a lot of Darren Aronovsky movies typically are. Most of his movies are very grounded with the characters that are in them. It's usually like around a handful of those that really get focus. In this one, it's a little bit more. I think that's both a good and a bad thing. Because it's good in the sense that you see the scale of which Austin Butler has gotten wrapped into with the illegal shit that's going on, with things he has to avoid or people he has to communicate with. You're starting to see that what's going on here is not a quick, easy fix, and as a result, it can lead into some anxiety. It leads to you worried for the sake of Austin Butler and the people in his life, and it constantly leaves a little bit of mystery and wonder into how everything's going to be resolved. Like, it's not really a clear-cut ending here. It's a lot of guessing to what's going to come next. But at the same time, there are certain characters that are in this movie that you do ultimately wonder why they are here, what they're doing here, if they need to be a part of it. So as a result, you may be watching a movie and think that certain characters matter more than the others, and therefore you're trying to focus maybe more on them, and then quickly they're not in the movie at all. And what's kind of disappointing for me is some of these characters actually were interesting, actually provide a little something to the movie. So once they're kind of just out of it entirely, for me, I don't know, it was a little bit of a letdown. Also, I should mention this up front. This movie, tonally speaking, is a little bit different from Darren Aronovsky movies. This is not really a psychological trip that he's typically used to taking you on. This is a crime comedy thriller. It feels a lot like a Guy Ritchie movie. So as a result, what is this movie? It's very funny at times. It's lighter in its tone at times. It's meant to be more of a fun time at the movies, and I think that is a good thing. But as a result, I think what might maybe deter some Darren Aronovsky fans is it feels very different from what he's done. Or at times it feels very different, because there are moments where you're actually supposed to laugh. Characters are making jokes, or characters are saying absurd things, or some really crazy shit is happening. You're just kind of shaking your head in disbelief because certain people just can't catch a break here. Like, if you saw the trailer from the movie, the vibe that the trailers give off are very much in this movie. And as a result, it doesn't feel as much like a Darren Aronovsky movie. And as a result, people who see his name attached to it are fans of his and his previous work might go into this and feel a little bit gypped from what they're used to seeing. But at the same time, does this movie have some really dark moments, some really tension-filled moments, some very bleak moments, the kind that just leave you feeling a little hopeless and a little broken in the way a lot of Darren Aronovsky movies leave you? Yes, that's also here too. Which I do think is important that he has that style in there as well, because you don't want him to just abandon what has made him the director that he is. Then he's just gonna outrage every fan. He has something in there for the hardcore fans of his as well. So in a way, I do understand maybe a little bit what he's going for. Like, he's trying to make something a little bit more mainstream or a little bit more meant for the general audience. He's trying to get more people in to see his work. And I do understand that. The thing is though, it does sometimes feel like a lot of tonal shifting in how the movie is made. Like, there could be a moment that's meant to be funnier or lighter, or just more enjoyable, and then it will immediately shift to a moment that's straight up dark, has you with your jaw on the floor, has you sitting there like, oh, fuck. Like, stuff that disturbs you, doesn't make you feel good in here. Like, it will shift in between that tone quite often, which at some point kind of makes you remember that you're watching a movie, and you're not really as sucked into the world as maybe you'd like to be. Like, rather than it feeling like a pure Darren Aronovsky movie, it feels like Darren Aronovsky inherited a Guy Ritchie movie and just decided to make it. So while a movie like that could cater to a wider audience to a degree, at the same time, you do sit there feeling like there is some tonal inconsistency in this story. And I will say this much, while the story has a lot going on, it has some tonal inconsistencies, I was undeniably engaged for quite a bit of it. There was a moment nearing the final act of this movie, really I want to say the final third, where I did feel a little slow, a little bit wondering to myself, okay, where ultimately is this going to lead towards? But I will say this much, when you get to that final act of this movie where everything's gonna finally wrap up, I was kind of sitting there like, okay, I do really kind of want this to bring it home in a big way. And the movie pretty much does that. Like, everything I was hoping for, everything I was kind of expecting to happen in a good way, everything I wanted to get wrapped up by the end was. So you can have a few bumpy roads along the way, but if you get me to the destination that I want to get to, I can forgive quite a bit. Not that there's a lot to be forgiven in a movie like this, but the stuff that does need to be, it can be. So all in all, Caught Stealing is a really solid crime comedy. Austin Butler I thought was great in the leading role. I don't know if he delivers as captivating his performance as I've seen maybe other Darren Aronovsky leads give, but he's still great here. It's a much more loaded cast than we're used to seeing, but everyone in here does a very good job. Everyone, I felt, had their screen time earned. Some characters I wish got fleshed out a little bit more. I do think the tonal inconsistencies between being a crime comedy that's more fun and meant for the mainstream audience to being a stereotypical dark psychological Darren Aronovsky movie, I do think that's conflicting at times, but it really did bring it home at the end. And I walked out of this movie the same way I've walked out of every Darren Aronovsky movie that I've ever seen. It was worth watching. This is the general consensus I would give most of his movies, and that for me is a 7 out of 10, which makes it one worth going to the movies for.
All right, come on, hurry up, Brian. I don't want to miss the movie trivia slides before the movie.
So that's all I'm going to say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video, and as always, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.